Here we go. Making a living as an artist is considered one of the riskiest professions out there. And technology has oftentimes made that job even more difficult as one's work gets spread to wider audiences, sometimes with very little payoff. But now, a new site formed by artists look to be giving them potentially a better future. Mark New is there. He's with the details, and he's also live from Silicon Valley. Hi, Mark.
Phil, over the past several years, we've seen how the digital and internet age has been great for tech companies, but not so great for artists and musicians. That's where the site Patreon enters the picture. The startup's founder, Jack Conte, says it's just like the crowdfunding site Kickstarter, but rather a Kickstarter that never ends. The hope is to finally come up with a platform that allows artists to survive. Lauren O'Connell is working on her latest song about a relationship gone bad.
Every time I try to kiss you, I feel like I'm giving blood.
While the music evokes pain, it's partly being fueled by a newfound optimism. Lauren joined the website Patreon, which allowed her to quit her minimum wage job folding towels and instead focus solely on music.
The feeling of being able to make my living on Patreon, it's completely empowering and exciting and motivating, and knowing that you will get out of your work what you put into it, it just really makes me want to make lots of albums and write lots of songs and know that everything will be okay.
Patrons have currently pledged to give Lauren more than $1,300 per song, which is several times more than what she could have received from iTunes. Patreon is different from crowdfunding sites like Kickstarter because artists don't have to beg for money each time they have a project. It's continuous work for continuous money. O'Connell isn't the only artist feeling a sense of inspiration and liberation. Patreon now has more than 20,000 creators on its site. About 180 new aspiring artists sign up every single day. On Patreon, you will also find writers, visual artists, and genres you never guessed could be financially viable, like learning to do the splits or something called autonomous sensory meridian response.
Look straight ahead for me one more time.
The man behind Patreon is musician Jack Conte, who got the idea after spending his entire savings making this music video, only to be rewarded with a few $100s on YouTube.
It's symbolic of the amount of effort put into something versus the tiny return that creators are getting.
After a little more than a year in business, Patreon is now moving into this new, bigger office. Patreon makes money by taking 5% of money pledged. The startup's revenue has grown by tenfold in the past 5 months.
And you have Spotify and Pandora, all-you-can-eat music, right? Or all-you-can-watch videos. That's awesome for consumers. It's really tough for artists who need to make a living releasing digital media. And so Patreon is effectively solving that problem. It's saying, okay, there's this new class of artists, full-time creators who are releasing beautiful things to the world, and how can we help those people make a living?
More than 100,000 pledges have now been made on Patreon. O'Connell believes this is the way it always should have been, an artist putting heart and soul into their product and knowing that in the end, it will be valued. So far, Patreon has processed more than $2.5 million in total pledges, now payments, for artists. In addition to some of the artist genres I mentioned, there are also comic strip writers, podcasters, photographers, and even journalists, too, making some money, extra money off Patreon. So, Phil, perhaps we'll have to put our heads together to see if some of those pledges can come our way in the future. Phil.
That's pretty cool. I don't know. I think we got to talk to the bosses about this one if we're going to raise money. But back on the topic of Patreon, you mentioned there's 100,000 folks that have given money already. What's the average amount that people are giving these artists?
Well, the average pledge across the entire site is $7 per product produced, or about $9 per month. Patreon does allow users to set a monthly max, so there are no surprises in your monthly bill. Artists can also get creative and offer various tiers where you can say, for example, set it for $1, you get the song, $5, maybe you get a song and a downloadable video. I've seen it where they had $20, you can get the artist to write a song for you or your friend. So that does allow creativity in their own marketing plan. Now, how much an artist can make varies greatly, also depending on how much you produce. But Patreon says they have cut a few checks for around $15,000 for a month's work. Jack Conte, the founder of Patreon, is currently not taking a company's salary. Instead, he's also surviving off pledges from Patreon, too. He has two sites, one for his solo project and one for his band Pamplemousse. which together have pledges of about $11,000 a month. So Jack is really walking the walk by continuing to make a living off his art. Phil.
All right, that's pretty cool. I'm going to try to find out how I can sell Mark New for 5 minutes and how much I can make off of that. Have a good weekend, Mark. Thank you.